Hi everybody, welcome to Wizard of Oz Day 10. I hope you're enjoying it.
The Cowardly Lion was much pleased to hear that the Wicked Witch had been melted by a bucket of water, and Dorothy unlocked the gate of his prison and set him free. Dorothy's first act was to call together all the Winkies who had long been the witch's slaves and tell them that they were free. There was great rejoicing among the yellow Winkies, for they had been made to work hard during many years for the Wicked Witch, who had always treated them with great cruelty. They kept this day as a holiday, then and ever after, and spent the time in feasting and dancing. "If our friends the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman were only with us," said the Lion, "I should be quite happy." "Do you suppose we could rescue them?" asked the girl. "We can try," answered the Lion. So they called the yellow Winkies and asked them if they would help, and the Winkies said they would be delighted to do all in their power for Dorothy, who had set them free from bondage. So she chose a number of the Winkies, and they all started away. They traveled that day and a part of the next until they came to the rocky plain where the Tin Woodman lay, all battered and bent. His axe was rusted and the handle broken. The Winkies lifted him tenderly in their arms and carried him back to the castle, where Dorothy asked if any of the Winkies were tinsmiths. A tinsmith is someone who worked with tin. So a tinsmith would be someone who would be able to fix the Tin Man because he is made out of tin. "Oh, yes, some of us are very good tinsmiths," they told her. "Then bring them to me," she said. And when the tinsmiths came, she asked, "Can you straighten out the dents in the Tin Woodman and solder him together where he is broken?" The tinsmiths looked at the Tin Woodman carefully and replied that they could mend him so he would be good as ever. Let's see. So here is the Tin Woodman. He is not in good shape. He looks pretty bent up, and he's all in pieces. There's a piece right there. And so the Winkies must be very good tinsmiths that they would be able to fix him. The tinsmiths looked the Tin Woodman over carefully and replied that they could mend him so he would be good as ever. They set to work in one of the big rooms of the castle and worked for 3 days and 4 nights, hammering and bending and soldering and polishing the Tin Woodman until at last he was straightened out. To be sure, there were several patches on him, but the tinsmiths did a good job. Meanwhile, another of the Winkies had made an axe handle of solid gold and fitted it to the woodman's axe, instead of the old broken handle. When at last the Tin Woodman walked into Dorothy's room and thanked her for rescuing him, he was so pleased that he wept tears of joy. Her own tears fell thick and fast at the joy of meeting her friend again. As for the Lion, he wiped his eyes so often with the tip of his tail that it became quite wet, and he was obliged to go out into the sun till it dried. "If we only had the Scarecrow with us again," sighed the Tin Woodman, after Dorothy had finished telling him all that had happened. "We must try to find him," said the girl. So she called the Winkies to help her, and they walked all that day and part of the next until they came to the tall tree in the branches of which the winged monkeys had tossed the Scarecrow's clothes. The Woodman set to chopping it down. In a short time, the tree fell over with a crash, and the Scarecrow's clothes fell out of the branches and onto the ground. The Winkies carried them back to the castle, where they were stuffed with nice clean straw, and behold, here was the Scarecrow, as good as ever, thanking them over and over again for saving him. Now that they were reunited, Dorothy and her friends spent a few happy days at the castle. But one day, the girl said, "We must go back to Oz and claim his promise." "Yes," said the Woodman. "I'll get my heart." "And I'll get my brains," added the Scarecrow. "And I'll get my courage," said the Lion. "And I'll get back to Kansas," cried Dorothy. "Oh, let us start for the Emerald City tomorrow." Oh, she's got that golden cap on. The next day, they bade the Winkies goodbye. The Winkies were sorry to have them go, and as they had grown so fond of the Tin Woodman that they begged him to stay and rule over them. But finding they were determined to go, the Winkies gave Toto and the Lion each a golden collar, and to Dorothy they gave a beautiful bracelet, and to the Scarecrow they gave a gold-headed walking stick to keep him from stumbling. And to the Tin Woodman they gave a silver oil can inlaid with gold and set with precious jewels. Dorothy went to the witch's cupboard to fill her basket with food for the journey, and there she saw the golden cap. She tried it on her own head and found it fitted her exactly. She knew nothing about the charm of the golden cap, but she saw that it was pretty, so she had made up her mind to wear it and carry her sunbonnet. Then they started for the Emerald City. The travelers knew they must go straight east toward the rising sun, but at noon, when the sun was over their heads, they realized they were lost in the great barren fields. One by one, they lost heart, even Dorothy. She sat down on the grass and looked at her companions, and they sat down and looked at her. And Toto panted and looked at Dorothy as if to ask what they should do next. "Suppose we call the field mice," she suggested. "They'll tell us the way to Oz." So they called out, and in a few minutes the Queen and her subjects came running. The Queen of the Mice asked how she could help them. "Can you tell us where the Emerald City is?" they asked. "Certainly," answered the Queen, "but it is a great way off. Why don't you use the charm of the golden cap you wear to call the winged monkeys to help you? They will carry you there in no time." "Well, I didn't know there was a charm," answered Dorothy in surprise. "It is written inside the cap," replied the Queen. "Don't be afraid. They must obey the wearer of the cap. Goodbye." And she scampered out of sight with all the mice hurrying after her. Dorothy looked inside the golden cap and read the charm. Then she put the cap back on her head and followed the instructions to summon the winged monkeys. They heard a great chattering and flapping of wings as the band of winged monkeys flew up to them. The king bowed low before Dorothy and asked for her command. "We wish to go to the Emerald City," said the girl. "We will carry you," replied the king. So 2 monkeys caught her in their arms and flew away with her. Others took the frightened Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman and the Lion, and one little monkey seized Toto and flew after them. In no time at all, the odd creatures set the travelers down carefully before the gate of the Emerald City. The king bowed to Dorothy, and the band flew away. The guardian of the gates led the travelers through the city, telling all that they had melted the Wicked Witch of the West. The soldier with the green whiskers carried the news to Oz, but Oz made no reply for several days. At last, the wizard sent for them to come, but the throne was empty. They kept close to the door and one another. They heard a disembodied voice solemnly say, "I am Oz, the great and terrible. Why do you seek me?" "We have come to claim our promises," said Dorothy. "Has the Wicked Witch been destroyed?" asked the voice, and Dorothy thought it trembled slightly. "Yes," she answered. "I melted her with water." "Dear me," said the voice. "How sudden. Well, Come to me tomorrow. I must have time to think. The lion thought it might be as well to frighten the wizard, so he gave a large, loud roar, which was so dreadful that Toto jumped away from him in alarm and tipped over the screen that stood in a corner. As it fell with a crash, they looked that way, and they saw a little old man with a bald head who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. So here's everyone with their green spectacles. Scarecrow's cane. And this is the screen that came crashing down. And who is there? But a little man. I wonder who that is. What do you think? The Tin Woodman, raising his axe, rushed toward the little man and cried out, "Who are you?" "I am Oz, the Great and Terrible," said the little man in a trembling voice. "But don't strike me, please don't." The friends looked at him in surprise and dismay. Dismay means they were very worried. "Well, we thought Oz was a great head," said Dorothy. "Oh, no, you are wrong," said the little man meekly. "I've been making believe." "Making believe?" cried Dorothy. "Are you not a great wizard?" "Hush, my dear," he said. "Don't speak so loud, or you will be overheard, and I should be ruined. I'm supposed to be a great wizard." "And aren't you?" she asked. Does that look like a great wizard to you? Not a bit of it, my dear. I'm just a common man. "Well, you're more than that," said the Scarecrow in a grieved tone. "You're a humbug." "Exactly so," declared the little man, rubbing his hands together as if it pleased him. "I am a humbug." "But this is terrible," said the Tin Woodman. "How shall I ever get my heart?" "Or my courage?" asked the lion. "Or my brains?" wailed the Scarecrow. "My dear friends," said Oz, "I pray you think of me and the terrible trouble I'm in at being found out." "Doesn't anyone else know you're a humbug?" asked Dorothy. So they're saying humbug. And what do you think that means? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, it's a bad thing. A humbug is just a bad person. "No one else knows it but you four and myself," replied Oz. "It was a great mistake, my ever letting you into the throne room. Usually I won't see my subjects, and so they believed I am something terrible." "But I don't understand," said Dorothy in bewilderment. "How is it that you appear to us as a great head?" "Oh, one of my tricks," answered Oz. "Step this way, please, and I will tell you all about it." He led them into a small chamber behind the throne room.